All right. So if you are here for the tobacco use prevention curricula, you are in the right place. Once again, if you can take that survey, we're going to get started, but don't worry, we're going to look at that survey a little bit later. So please feel free to go ahead and finish that survey while I kind of do our opening administrative things. But thank you for joining us today. We're going to be looking at some quick information about vaping and cannabis prevention. We'll look a little bit at some data and statistics just to kind of give us some content or context to what we are looking at when we actually dive into the different types of curriculums that are available when it comes to addressing vaping on campus. My name is Linnell Lujan. I'm a senior program specialist here at the Tobacco Use Prevention Education Unit here at the Los Angeles County Office of Education. And our training today is going to run from 9 to 11. So hopefully I can keep you kind of focused on me. I hope that we can get some engagement. So there are going to be pieces here that I will ask for some input, and I hope that you'll be able to engage with us today. So if you're new, a little bit about the TUPE unit. We are a unit that is dedicated to building capacity, providing professional trainings, and facilitating collaboration when it comes to youth vaping on campus in the 80 LEAs in LA County. With us today, we have some of our team members. We have Mark Hernandez, who is our program coordinator. He will be manning our chat. So if you at any point have any questions, comments, or any sort of wonderings, go ahead and feel free to drop them in the chat at any point, and Mark will be able to answer them for you. We also have Derek Reed, who is another senior program specialist who oversees the Tier 2 grant. And a new member of our staff is Kira McNeely. She is a senior program activity specialist. She will be in charge of everything that is student and family engagement. So if you and your school or school district are interested in us coming out and meeting with parents on parent night or back to school night, or even thinking about doing some student engagement on your campus, Kira is going to be the one to facilitate that. So please feel free to reach out to our unit and see what we can offer for you. Some housekeeping I've already covered. Please feel free to drop any questions into the chat. We have our staff that is available to answer any of your questions or any contact. If you, again, want us to come out and train your staff, speak to your students, come to an event that you're having for families, please let us know. We have closed captioning available, and we are recording this training. So if for some reason you need to step away, I realize that some people are currently at work and might need to step away for a moment, or maybe you have a colleague that was not able to make it today. Do not fret. We are recording this, and we will be sending out the recording and the PowerPoint PDFs to everyone who registered. So if there's something you missed, you can always go back and look at it. We will have some participation and engagement pieces. So please feel free to engage with us, answer some questions. Again, we have a survey that if you just walked in, or if you haven't completed it yet, please feel free to complete. It's a quick 5-minute questions. And all of our recordings will be available on our Canvas page, which is where we keep all of our past trainings and recordings as well. So if there were any trainings that we had in the past that you were interested in, you can go to that page, take a look at some of our past trainings. I will give you access to that page if you don't have it already at the end of this presentation. All right, so our agenda today, we're going to go over some quick information about what the data says. So just a quick overview about youth vaping. When we talk about vaping, we're talking about anything from nicotine to cannabis to even some of the vape devices on the market that are being sold as holistic, healthy options, but they are actually the same types of inhalation of aerosol and vapes. Then we'll hear from Tonya Moore, who is going to talk a little bit about the health framework and the health standards and how some of the lessons and curriculum that we're talking about today might be able to fit into those standards and framework. Then we'll hear from two different curriculums. We'll hear from Catch My Breath and what their curriculums have to offer. And then we'll hear from Stanford's Reach Lab on their nicotine and cannabis lessons and curriculums. And we'll also hear about their data dashboard. In the end, we will talk a little bit about resources that our office and our unit has to offer you and any future trainings that you might be interested in. Remember that all of our trainings are free, so we'll let you know a little bit about some of the trainings that are coming up for the next 3 months. All right, so let's get started with the data. We want to know what the data says, what youth usage looks like, and what are the needs, right? A lot of times we are seeing students using these vapes at schools in the bathrooms and the lockers, which makes sense. They spend most of their time at school. So before we look at that data, let's take a look at some of the responses that we got from this morning's survey. So the question was really, what do you know about youth vaping, right? So when it came to what group of students had the highest usage of e-cigarettes in 2024, most people chose middle school students. And oh, okay, so now we're 50-50. And this is really interesting because in just a second, we're going to go over the most recent National Youth Tobacco Use Survey, which is going to tell us something different than what we were seeing in the past years. In past years, we were seeing that high school students were among the most using e-cigarettes. And this year and last year, we saw a drop in high school student usage and a uptick in middle school students. And so this is really interesting that the data is kind of taking a turn, and middle schoolers are among the most usage and high school numbers are going down. So when it came to this question, which of the following products were most commonly used by youth according to 2024's National Youth Tobacco Survey? Most of you got it. It is e-cigarettes. We are hearing a lot about the nicotine pouches, and that this is probably going to see an uptick because we're seeing some numbers rising there. But for right now, students and youth are most attracted to e-cigarettes than other products like cigarettes, cigars, and hookah. So, which factor was identified as the most significant reason for youth tobacco use in 2024? This one is always a question that we get when we work with schools and staff, is what is it that draws students to this, right? And a lot of people actually think it's mostly due to peer pressure. And while that is a factor, one of the leading factors is the availability of flavored products and stress relief. Um, Here in California, it is illegal to sell flavored products. So those numbers might change from national to just our state. But because flavored products are targeted towards youth with different types of flavors like donuts and cereals and candy, this is a huge draw for youth when it comes to their decision making on whether to use vape devices or not. And according to the 2024 survey, what percentage of middle school students expressed a desire to quit using tobacco products? This one actually turned out to be 65%. So for those who are currently using tobacco products, which means that they are using it within the last 10 days consistently, they have expressed that they want to quit or reduce, which is a very optimistic outcome, right? An optimistic data that more than half of them have expressed that they want to quit. And so this is where our work comes in helping with those supports. And finally, what year has seen the lowest e-cigarette usage among youth? We actually are seeing that this year in 2024. We have not seen this low of numbers for a very, very long time. But this year, in the most recent National Youth Tobacco Survey, we have seen the lowest numbers of tobacco or e-cigarette usage among US students. And this is mostly due to the fact that high school students are using e-cigarettes less and less each year. So let's look at some of that data. This is the NYTS for 2023. And in 2023, we saw that 10% of high school students and 4.6% of middle school students were currently using e-cigarettes. We saw that Elf Bar was one of the most popular brands being used, and that most users were using flavored e-cigarettes. So some of the same sort of um, assumptions that we're making, that of course students are going to choose flavors that are candy flavored and kind of that sweet sensation. This year in 2023, this is the first time we saw the numbers for high schoolers go down. But just a couple weeks ago, the 2024 survey for the National Youth Tobacco Survey was just released. And what we saw is that while middle school numbers basically stayed the same, that high school students, the number of high school students using e-cigarettes actually dropped more. And this is where we're seeing the decline of youth e-cigarette users altogether, that it has dropped. It is at its lowest, and that is mostly due to the fact that the numbers are dropping in the age group of high school students. Now, what that sort of tells me is that if we are seeing high school students using less and less e-cigarettes, that we in this world of tobacco use prevention are doing a great job at targeting the high school age groups, right? In the past, that is where our focus was because that is where the numbers were really high. But now that we are seeing the fruits of our labor and that those numbers are going lower, we now need to focus on middle school. And my assumption would be that we now need to focus on elementary school. In the work that we do in going on campuses here in LA County and talking to admin and talking to SROs, we are noticing that more and more elementary schools are finding students bringing vapes on campus. And while the NYTS does not survey elementary aged students, once again, my assumption would be that if middle school numbers are going up, that it is probably safe to say that elementary school numbers are probably going up as well. Um, we noticed in the 2024 NYTS survey that once again, Elf Bar is a very popular brand. Elf Bar accounts for 36.1% of students self-reporting that this is the brand that they are currently using. Breeze came in at 19.9, which is sort of a new brand that we haven't really seen make it on the charts in the past years. Mr. Fogg, Voos, and Juul are some return brands that we've seen. Juul, despite all of their lawsuits, is still coming in at the top 5. So these are some of the brands that we might be seeing on our campuses. When it comes to California, California has polled students in 8th, 10th, and 12th grade. And in 10th and 12th grade, in the last 30 days, 6.6% of students say that they have used frequently, right? Last 30 days. 20.3% have said that they've ever used. So this means that they've tried it, but they may not be consistent users. They may have tried it a couple times and didn't like it, or maybe they got caught and decided not to do it again. When it came to cannabis, however, 8.8% of 10th and 12th grade students have used in the last 30 days, and 21.4% have said they've tried it. And so this is one of the concerning issues, is that vaping, again, can include nicotine, cannabis, even some vitamins or caffeine, but we're seeing that among youth, it is most popular in cannabis than it is with cigarettes. In 8th grade, 4% of students said that they had smoked cigarettes in the last 30 days, but 3.1% had said that they had tried or used cannabis, and 9.3% had said that they had ever used or tried. Once again, some of the hopeful data here is that almost half of current youth vape users in California have expressed that they are attempting to quit, or that they intend to attempt to quit. And so once again, it is that work being done to either reduce or stop usage among youth vapors who might be using socially or might be addicted. So according to the 2022 youth National Youth Survey, um, the question was asked among youth students or youth why they use vape devices, right? Most of the students said that it was because they were feeling anxious, stressed, or depressed. And this just gives us a further indication that students are not using because necessarily because it's cool or because, they're being pressured. Mostly youth are using it to self-medicate. We have a generation of youth that went through a global pandemic. We have a generation of youth who are exposed to social media, and that exposes them to a lot about the world and what is out there. And so students are using this to feel anxious, or to self-medicate their anxiety and their depression. And almost similarly, students said that they used it to get high or buzz from the nicotine. So what this means is that these two are correlated, right? Rather than feeling anxious, stressed, or depressed, using nicotine in a vape or even in a cigarette gives them a sort of high, a sort of buzz that calms that anxiety or calms that depression. And what youth don't really realize is that while that is being a temporary calmness, a temporary fix, that once the nicotine wears off, that anxiety, stress, and depression actually comes back worse than what it had before. And so students will, youth or just users will need more and more and more in order to feel calmer and better. And that is sort of how we see students become addicted, which we'll go over in a little bit later. We also see that students use because friends are using them. This could be a variety of things, right? It could be peer pressure. It could be the wanting or longing to belong and feel like they are part of the group. And then we also see students who say they use it to do tricks. This one is always surprising to people when I present this. There is a whole underworld of vaping where they have competitions where they do tricks with the plumes of the vape devices. They can win competitions. They can win even sponsorships from tobacco companies or even vape shops. And so a lot of students, 20% of students say that they use them to do the tricks and to possibly even uh, compete and win money for that. When we had the chicks survey of 2022, students said that students said that they were more likely to use, or that they were current users, when they were experiencing chronic sadness, suicide ideations, and emotional distress, which once again is just another indication that students are trying to self-medicate, and trying to find different coping skills to deal with these sort of emotional issues, not knowing how to cope in healthy ways. Those students who said that they felt life satisfaction and optimism, however, said that they were non-vapers. So we're seeing a trend here in terms of mental health and social emotional growth, and students are turning to vaping in order to fix some of those issues. Very similar and almost exact numbers we saw with use of marijuana. Once again, students who said that they experienced chronic sadness, suicide ideation, and emotional distress were vape users. And those who said that they experienced life satisfaction and optimism were among those who were non vape users. So, once again, students who are trying to self medicate and trying to deal with their chronic sadness, emotional distress, and suicide ideations. However, those are not the only factors when students are faced with using vape devices. There are three different categories when youth are faced with using vapes. Personal, we kind of went over already. Personal is really the factors within oneself. Somebody who is trying to, again, self medicate depression, isolation, sadness, anxiety, trying to fix sort of inward issues. Interpersonals are factors between people. So this can include peer pressure or just the pressure of belonging and being accepted, um, even exposure. So going to parties and friends who are using and seeing others who are using vape devices, sort of that cool factor, wanting to be cool, wanting to be accepted. But the other one that mostly gets overlooked is the social and environment, or your community. These are factors within a student's local community and beyond. So this can mean anything from advertisements in TV or on YouTube, or even on social media. This can also mean smoke shops that might be near schools or parks, or even places that youth congregate, like, um, boys and girls clubs, the mall. I don't know if kids go to the mall anymore. Maybe I just dated myself, but just their exposure to their environment. Are they seeing people smoking within the close range of their apartment buildings, their local businesses? Does their schools or does their city have policies and bans? And if not, how much are students being exposed to vape usage? How many vape billboards are they passing on their way to school or on their way to grandma's house? So, sort of that social environment that most people may not realize, but they are being exposed more than they realize, basically. Another question we get is, where are students getting them from, right? If it is illegal to sell a vape device to a minor, how are they getting their hands on them? The most common answer that we get, um, or that people assume, is from family and friends. And that's true, right? I used to be a classroom teacher for 10 years, and most of the instances I saw, it was because a student brought home or brought to school a vape that belonged to a parent or an older sibling or an aunt or an uncle. And those adults in those households had no idea that the student had found the vape and brought it to school. Sometimes they will get them from older classmates or classmates who might not have a lot of restrictions at home, and so they're bringing them to school. They might know neighbors who are selling them, or older kids at the high school or even at the college who are selling them to minors. Students are also getting them on social media. We know that social media like TikTok and Instagram, that these algorithms show content based on the person's interests and their age and how much they interact with certain videos. For instance, my TikTok shows me a lot of dog and puppy videos, and right now a lot of fall soups because that's sort of the videos that I'm interacting with, right? So it's going to show me more of the things that I like. But social media with youth are targeting youth with different types of advertisements and different types of content. And this can include the sales of vape devices. Some TikTok accounts might be sellers and might arrange to meet with a student at a parking lot or at a local mall, but this can also be dangerous because we don't know the people who are on these TikToks and Instagram, and so this can be dangerous for our students. Online is also a way to get devices. If you've ever been to an online smoke shop, all you really need to do is press one of two buttons, one that says, yes, I am of age, or no, I am not. And there really is no way to verify that. You just got to pick the correct button, right? Yes, I am allowed to be on this site. And you can purchase anything that you'd like. Some of these online shops might not even be within the country. So this is where it can become dangerous because some of those devices might be counterfeit. They might include things in the e-juice that are not safe, that are not allowed to be sold here in the United States through the FDA. And so this can become very dangerous. If you take a look at that picture there on the far left is the Puff Bar, which is a very, very popular brand. The other three following it are counterfeit. And you can see how they are designed to look exactly like the Puff Bar. Even their packaging is designed to look very similar. You can see that second one almost looks exactly the same with the logo. Instead of saying Puff, it says Lou. Those last three are counterfeit here in the United States. So once again, this is where we see vape devices that explode or that catch on fire because these are counterfeit devices and they can be dangerous. One very, very surprising way that students get vape devices is from the actual shops. In 2023, there was a survey done where it polled youth ages 13 to 18 and asked them where they bought their devices from. And 40% of them said that they bought their devices from smoke shops or gas stations, retailers. The survey showed that most of these 40% got them from smoke shops and gas stations versus, say, like Walmart or stores like that, which tell us that gas stations and smoke shops are either not doing the age verification or they are and they're selling the products to students anyways. In going to schools and speaking to admin and teachers, we have found that there are smoke shops who are willing to sell to youth. And that information spreads among campus. Students know exactly which smoke shop and which employees at that smoke shop are willing to sell vapes to them. And all the students know exactly who and where to get that from. And so this is always a surprising piece to this because again, retailers are supposed to be checking. Sometimes different cities and different communities don't really have the capacity to do shoulder taps, and so smoke shops are able to make a profit off of selling to minors. So when it comes to SB 793, this was a bill that went into effect January 1st of 2023, which said that selling flavored products here in California was illegal. So no more will you be able to find menthol tobacco products in the form of cigarettes, chew pouches, wraps, no more flavored electronic smoking devices, and no more flavored electronic juices or e-juice. While this seems like a really great bill, which it is, what this also means is that users who are addicted to these flavors are going to find other ways to get them. So if you have a student who has been using a vape device for years, they really love the mango flavor, now it is illegal to sell that. Students might go to social media or online to try to get that device because it is outlawed here in California. But as we said earlier, that those kind of avenues can be dangerous too, because vape devices can be counterfeit and include very dangerous materials. And so this is kind of another thing to keep in mind, is that while flavors are banned here in California, that does not necessarily mean that a user can not get their hands on the different flavors that they are looking for. One thing that students and even just adult users don't realize is how much nicotine is in each device. So we can see here that in a box of cigarettes, right, a pack of cigarettes, you've got 20, which is about 20 mgs of cigarettes. The Juul pod has the equivalent of 41 cigarettes. The Puff Bar has about 50, and the Soren pod has about 90. So in one Soren pod, you could have almost 5, packs of cigarettes. But the problem with this is that the Juul pod, the Puff Bar, the Soren pod, those are severely outdated. They don't even sell those models of Puff Bars anymore. What we're actually looking at now are devices like this. Flume floats have upwards of 400 cigarettes. The Hyde Rebel has almost 500. Elf bars have almost 650 cigarettes in it. And then you've got your big ones, the Mega Puffs, which can be upwards to about 1,000 cigarettes. So what does that look like, right? How much nicotine do you think an Elf bar contains? If it's the equivalent of 650, how much does an Elf bar contain, right? Go ahead and drop your guesses, just a number. How much nicotine do you think Elf bar contains? Milligrams? What do you think? If our students are using an Elf bar, how many milligrams do you think it is? Ooh, you guys are good. You guys are really good at this. Okay, 590, 650. Okay, 650, 1,200. Okay. So yeah, if a cigarette typically delivers 1 milligram of nicotine each, this Elf bar actually contains 650, right? So again, when students have these small, tiny devices, right? Um, let's say a student wants to reduce or stop. How do they know, right? Because in a box or a pack of cigarettes, you'd be able to quantify how many cigarettes you're going through in a week, in a month, in a day. But with vape devices, that's really difficult to tell, right? How do you know if you are using 500 cigarettes in this Elf bar, 300, 200? That's hard to quantify, and it's hard for anyone really to try to quit or reduce. And this is where vape devices are very misleading, because you're not really cognizant of how much nicotine is in it and what that equivalent is in cigarettes. The interesting thing about Elf Bar is that Elf Bar is actually illegal here in the United States. It is odd that it is not allowed to be imported into the United States. However, it is the most popular brand among our youth. A few months ago, we saw that the FDA and DOJ actually seized over $700,000 worth of unauthorized cigarettes here, very locally in Alhambra. What happened was that Elf Bar was actually banned from being imported into the United States. So what Elf Bar did was try to change their business name. They went from Puff Bar to Puff to Elf Bar to EB Design. I think now they're even called EB Creative. They keep trying to change their names in the hopes that it'll sort of trick customs. But each time the FDA outlaws the imports of these devices. However, we know that it is the most popular among youth. So somehow these devices are getting into the United States. They're being sold in smoke shops. And even further, youth are getting their hands on them. When we talk about e-juice, we know that there is a lot of equivalent of cigarettes in it. But what a lot of users don't realize is what else is in the e-juice that is in these vape devices. It can be very misleading. You can see here that e-juice has about 3 to 4 different ingredients. You have propylene glycol, vegetable glycerin, nicotine, and natural or artificial flavors. Very simple. However, what the user doesn't realize is that when that e-juice and those 4 different ingredients are heated up, a chemical reaction occurs and it changes the ingredients to include the following chemicals. These are chemicals that are found in the aerosol after the e-juice has been heated and vaporized, right? The aerosol. The following are all chemicals that have been found on the FDA's list of harmful or potentially harmful substances or carcinogens. So chemicals and chemicals that have been known to cause cancer. So you see very, very concerning things like formaldehyde, nickel, lead, acetone. These are arsenic. These are some of the the chemicals that are being inhaled by the user from the aerosol that's being produced from the vape device. What students don't know is the harmful effects, right? We all, as adults, know that the brain is constantly developing and doesn't actually stop developing until the age of 25. And so when minors and youth are using vape devices, nicotine, cannabis, whichever, it is going to affect the growth of their brain and it will rewire and change the brain. It also will give a fight or flight response, right? So the heart will start to beat faster because they are getting that rush and that buzz from the nicotine and or the cannabis. It also increases acid reflux, and of course, it's going to cause trouble in the lungs in terms of breathing. Which brings us to current EVALI and VAPI cases. EVALI and vapey or vappy are essentially the same thing. EVALI is e-cigarette or vaping associated lung injury, and vappy is vaping associated pulmonary injury. What it basically means is that these two injuries to the lungs have been associated specifically with e-cigarettes. And currently what we have seen nationally is that it has caused about 68 deaths, one of which was in the county of LA. But another concerning part is addiction, right? Are our students constantly using these vape devices for whatever reason and becoming addicted? We know that nicotine is highly addictive and that it can change the human brain in a way that creates a dependency. The cycle of nicotine addiction starts with bringing nicotine into the body. It causes, in this case, it comes as an inhalation, right? They inhale it from a cigarette or a vape device. The nicotine then enters the brain and activates all the pleasure centers of the brain. However, after the level of nicotine drops, it drops very quickly, and the brain needs more. And the brain keeps craving the nicotine and needs more to satisfy it until once again the cycle starts. The nicotine is inhaled, it goes to the brain, and again and again and again, more and more and more each time. Currently, 3 out of 4 teens who smoke or vape in high school will still be smoking as adults. Because they've created such a dependency during a time where their brain is developing, it will become easier for them to become addicted and harder for them to stop. Now, we talked a lot about vaping, and I've talked about it in ways that are interchangeable for nicotine and marijuana. And when we talk about vaping, it includes this triangulum, which is a framework to understand how youth are harmed by vaping. And this can include tobacco, vaping, marijuana. And so when we talk about vaping, we talk about the action of vaping. This can include nicotine, cannabis, and other substances. Currently, there are 3 different types: vape pens, which are probably your most common, wax pens, and dab pens. Your wax pens and your dab pens are used mostly in terms of cannabis in order to deliver a high concentrated percentage of THC to the user. When we talk about cannabis vapes, Stizzy is a company that is mostly dedicated to cannabis use and cannabis pods. But you also will see carts or cartridges that are associated with wax pens. And once again, these are meant to burn at a higher level in order to melt the wax that is a very, very high concentrate of cannabis. So we as educators or people who just work with students, work on campuses, work in schools, what do we do? There are tiered supports that we can use in order to address vaping on campus. Today, we'll be talking about the prevention part, the one that all students get, whether that means deterring students who have never tried from trying in the future, whether that means students who are currently using but do not know the dangers, and so this prevention might help them reduce or quit. But we'll go over these 3 curriculums: You and Me Vape Together, Vape Free, Catch My Breath, and Smart Talk, which is a cannabis curriculum. We do have an intervention training that will be in December where we will talk about those supports. But today, we're just going to cover prevention. We'll also talk a little bit about how this will fit into existing structures and systems. For instance, today we'll hear a little bit about how this can fit into the California health standards and the health framework. As mentioned, we will be giving a training on intervention in December, which I will give you that information at the end. But when it comes to prevention versus intervention, here in the TUPE unit, we mostly get contact from schools and school districts on the intervention piece. All of a sudden, students are being caught with vape devices. They're bringing them to school. Sometimes schools don't know what to do or how to address that. So we help support those intervention programs. However, what a lot of schools don't really address is the prevention piece. How do we stop the problem from starting rather than responding to the problem that has already started? Or how do we how do we stop the problem from starting now that we've already addressed the problem that has already started? And so today we're going to look at that proactive approach. How do we avoid these negative outcomes that can be harmful to students before they actually happen? So with that said, we're going to hear from Project Director 3, Tonya Moore, who works here at the Los Angeles County Office of Education. And she's going to talk about the health education standards and where some of these curriculums can fit into your classrooms, into your standards, and into your daily, core classes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Linnell. I appreciate the warm welcome. My name is Tonya Moore. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a coordinator 3 for physical education and comprehensive health at LACOE, where I work with school districts, local education agencies throughout the county to provide technical assistance and support with areas around physical education and comprehensive health. So my role today is really to talk about that tiered 1 support that Linnell was mentioning. Um, Education is the best prevention. And I wanted to highlight the health education standards and how that ties to the framework and how that ties into alcohol, tobacco, and other drug education, and where the connection is with TUPE work. So according to the health education standards, the California Health Education Standards really provides clear descriptions of what students should know and be able to do at each grade level. Something that Linnell touched upon is the just say no era, right? Just Say No provided us with a lot of information and a lot of facts and a lot of scare tactics. That's a lot of knowledge, a lot of content. But what we learned from the Just Say No era is we didn't provide students with skills on how to just say no. So that's where the health education standards come into play. What you see on the screen right now is basically describing in simple terms what the standards describe as our what and what are how we do it. So the framework describes how to implement the standards. The California Health Education Framework describes how to implement our content standards. With this particular slide, you see on the left-hand side, it lists a high school standard in health education. The right-hand side is a sample from the framework that's sharing a short description of what the learning of this standard could look like in the classroom environment through what's known as a photo voice activity. So let's take a deeper look at this. High school grade standard 9 through 12 is saying, and just to be clear, ATOD stands for alcohol, tobacco, and other drug education. With this particular standard, students are expected to be able to explain healthy alternatives to alcohol, tobacco, and other drug use. So how could we do that? Through something that's called a photo voice activity. So we're going to hear from other curriculum options out there like Stanford Tobacco Toolkit and Catch My Breath. That's how we do it. The what is required from our standards and the framework, it really talks about how to implement the curriculum, and we're going to hear more about those curriculum options in a bit. The next slide really is, these are the very specific skills. So you'll see at the bottom, essential concepts. Think of that as the information. That's the content. That's the knowledge. That's the data. Those are the facts about health education content areas. And as you move up this health literacy model, it really becomes more complex, more sophisticated skills. So analyzing influences, accessing valid information, interpersonal communication, decision making, goal setting, practicing health enhancing behaviors and health promotion, those are all the skills that will be paired up with the central concepts. So let me explain it a different way. The skills are the same, it's the content that changes. Whether we're talking about alcohol, tobacco, vaping, whether or not we want to consume a Monster energy drink or an Elf Bar product, those are all, we have to understand the facts about those products, but then we need to incorporate the skills to really put those, the content information into play. This model communicates how health literacy advances through the 8 overarching health education content standards. And like I said prior, standard 1 is the essential concepts at the bottom of the model, and standard 8 is health promotion at the top. As you can see, as you advance through this ladder, if you will, the higher you go, the more advanced, and it increases with complexity, but also the skills require a little bit more sophistication. With this next slide, it shows you all of the content areas that are included and required in health education. And I highlighted alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs because I think it's really important to reiterate the importance of skill development. Those skills are critical. We can't just provide students with, hey, here are the dangers of vaping. Here are the, Elf bars are the most commonly used among youth. That information alone does not provide students with the ability to make healthy decisions upon their own health and well-being. So we need to provide them with skill development in each of the health education content areas. This next slide is talking about the content area by grade level. The health education content addressed in each grade level is easily viewed in this chart, and it's available with the health education content standards as well as the framework, which is available on the website, the LACOE website, but also the CDE website. To help us with the quality and depth of health instruction, some health content areas are not recommended for every grade level. Districts are encouraged to add content areas for additional grade levels depending on local health priorities. So this is really important to note because you'll see in 5th grade, alcohol, tobacco, and other drug education is not traditionally taught in 5th grade. So what's important to note is it can be taught in 5th grade if there is a local need or a local health priority. So if, like Linnell was talking about, we're seeing a lot more vape in the elementary levels, perhaps there needs to be an education level in that 5th grade. Another way to look at this is you'll see that sexual health is not taught in kindergarten through 4th grade because that is not required. It is not necessary for that to be taught until 5th grade because that's when that recommended puberty class is taught. So to kind of summarize a little bit about the content area by grade level, the health education standards represent the minimum requirements for comprehensive health education. For today, we're going to really focus on the alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs lens. And as you can see, they are the standards for ATOD in grades kindergarten, 2nd, 4th, 6th, middle school, and high school. If there is a local need and a local health priority, you are able to teach that in grade 1 and grade 3 and grade 5. So with that, I think it's a really important transition to really focus on the tiered 1 support, as education is the most critical part of prevention. As Linnell talked about, a lot of school districts are reaching out for the intervention support, and it's critical that we do the prevention so that we don't get to the intervention part. So with that, I'd like to pass it back to Linnell so that we can look at the prevention curricula options.
All right. So, just as Tanya said, that brings us to the curriculum parts. The first curriculum that we're going to be looking at is Catch My Breath. Catch My Breath does cover grades 5th, 6th, 7, 8, and 9 through 12. They are standards aligned. They have learning objectives. They come in the formats of Google Slide and PowerPoint, which are downloadable so you can edit them. For instance, let's say you're going to use the PowerPoint or the Google Slides for grade 5, but maybe there's some information in there that you feel might not be appropriate for the students at that grade level. They are editable for you to add or take away. There are educator guides, so guides for educators to be able to deliver these. They also have student workbooks. So this curriculum comes with activities, assignments, even homework that students can take home and use, or teachers can assign in class, which also come with answer keys. And then there's also moments in the lessons for checking for understanding. So I'm going to let Marcella, the representative of Catch My Breath, talk a little bit about some of those aspects and how you can gain access to this curriculum.
Morning. Thank you so much for having me here for this valuable information. Excited to share with you the Catch My Breath program, just as a tool, one tool of measurement. And so with that, I'm going to get started, and just bear with me. I do get technically challenged sometimes. So as Linnell said, this is who I am. And just to introduce, if you haven't heard of CATCH before, so who are we? So CATCH stands for the Coordinated Approach to Child Health. We were created in the 1980s and later formed as a 501c3 nonprofit organization in 2014. We are celebrating our 10th year anniversary as a nonprofit this year. So CATCH is evidence-based and evidence-informed school health programs address whole child wellness. CATCH programs often with CATCH and the CATCH Global Foundation, we really try to launch kids towards healthier lifestyles by linking underserved schools and communities to resources needed to create and sustain that healthy change, which is needed for generations to come. And how do we do this? We do this by providing low cost to no cost curricula, including PE, nutrition, social emotional learning, some safety, oral health, and youth vaping prevention, along with our professional development trainings, which I'm going to just dive into a little bit of all of this today. Because we believe in cultivating whole child wellness as a lever for student success and social equity. So currently, our Catch My Breath Youth Vaping Prevention Program is not only evidence-based to improve both knowledge, but also to improve behavior change. So youth who go through our curriculum are less likely to actually try an e-cigarette, which is what we want. It's great that they increase knowledge, but we really want that behavior change to where they're not going to try a e-cigarette, which then can lead to, as the speakers Tonya and Linnell both pointed out, that can lead to other things like marijuana use and different drugs. We are also listed in the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, which is SAMHSA. It's the agency within the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that actually leads public health efforts to really advance the behavioral health of the nation. Catch My Breath is listed in there as the only school-based intervention, which is listed in SAMHSA's evidence-based resource guide series, reducing vaping among youth and young adults. So just a little bit of that data where we talk about, we were publishing public health reports where we actually show that behavior change and that knowledge change. So the average 7th grade class size in U.S. public schools is approximately 192 students. If nothing is done, we project 17 of those students will actually try an e-cigarette by the end of this school year. But if we can implement Catch My Breath into all those middle schools, about half of those students will not try an e-cigarette. And if we could do that only in 7th grade, that would reduce about 154,000 students from even trying an e-cigarette. So Catch My Breath is, as I mentioned, it's a nicotine vaping prevention program. It's been effective at producing the likelihood to experiment with vaping. It was designed by our theoretical background, which is social cognitive theory, which views health behaviors as products of personal, social, and environmental factors, which I believe Linnell spoke a little bit about that earlier as well. So personally, what do I know about e-cigarettes? What can I do about them? And what are my attitudes and beliefs? Socially, what's that social response to me using or not using e-cigarettes? And then my environment. How does my environment support and reward or discourage and punish the use or not use of e-cigarettes? So in addition to building this knowledge, Catch My Breath disrupts the normative beliefs such as the notion that everybody's doing it. Students develop skills that help them resist peer pressure. As we talked about earlier, not only that they see through advertising and misinformation that perpetuates both online, also from their peers. And as a whole, the program creates favorable attitudes and beliefs about not using e-cigarettes. After all, the question isn't what will my students do if they're exposed to e-cigarettes, but what will they do when they're exposed to e-cigarettes? And Catch My Breath gives students a wide range of those skills to help them respond to a number of real world scenarios. Who designed our program? It was our lead researcher, Professor Dr. Stephen Kelder from the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston School of Public Health. Fun fact about Dr. Kelder is that he's actually a senior scientific editor on the Surgeon General's report that came out in 2016. And I believe with Dr. Bonnie Halpern, he actually testified against Juul as well. He's been the lead researcher and developer of our programs for over 30 years, and I work with him pretty much weekly to make sure our program stays up to date and current, which we do update our program twice a year as those standards come out, as Linnell had mentioned earlier as well. And to piggyback on what Tonya said, our Catch My Breath program falls right into alignment for your health education standards. We know this is important, and Dr. Kelder knew this was important, even creating the curriculum, because it's not something else that you have to do. It's actually helping you do something that you're required to facilitate and teach. So our proven formula, which Catch makes it easy and doable to implement that whole child approach and really support, that student wellness, and where Catch My Breath stands out a little bit with this is that building the skills and the environmental support to really develop healthy kids for a lifetime. These three things work together to create healthy learners, where we certainly try to build knowledge around health behaviors and decision making, but we really back up the skills with that skill building practice and opportunities to reinforce this information. This is why that environmental support, the skill building, Catch My Breath, is we have that behavior change, because it's that whole environment and that whole community within the organization. I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now, because what's really important for me is that you guys actually see what we have. So in order for me to switch screens, I have to stop sharing my screen. Maybe there. Then I'm going to reshare it again with hopefully the right screen. I'm going to take it right into the program itself, because we can talk about what we have, but until you actually see it and get your feet wet in it, it really doesn't do much for us. So this is the Catch My Breath platform. You can hit the Let's Go Catch.org platform. And oh, I thought I was signed in, but I'm not. So I'm going to sign in real quick. And if you've already created an account, this is one thing that you'll do. You can go into sign up, which is really easy. If you're an educator professional, you just click on that. You can create your account, and you just put in, if there's any information that you don't know, you can just put NA, and then you're automatically put right into the system. So we really tried to make it simple and easy for you to get into. So I'm just going to go to this screen, and hopefully it pops up. There we go. Okay. And once you are logged in, you'll see, do you see my welcome back, Marcella slide? Thumbs up, Linnell? No, we do not.
We're still on the sign up sheet.
Okay, I'm going to stop my share. And thank you, Scott. I saw you shaking your head no too, so I appreciate that. There we go. Now we do, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so once you sign in, you'll come back to this page. It's personal. We welcome you back. You will click onto this little Catch My Breath e-cigarette sign, and it'll take just a minute to pop you into it. There we go. And then we have our program is completed in English and in Spanish. So it's free. I didn't mention that. It is free. So you'll just click on whichever one you want to go into, your English or your Spanish version. Today we're going to go into English, because that's better for me. And as it's loading, You'll have access to the complete curriculum just by clicking that button. A few things that I do want to highlight about our curriculum. Everything here on the left-hand side. So the first thing I want to go into is under getting started. We have a program prep. One of the key things within the Catch My Breath curriculum is our peer-to-peer facilitation. So while we do have, it is led by adult facilitators, there is an opportunity for students to go ahead and lead a section of the curriculum in every single one of our lessons in every single grade band. So there is anything that's here in green is clickable and downloadable. So you can just download that program prep. Hopefully that comes up right. And you have the full educator guide for that. The neat thing about that is that we also have a peer facilitator training. So this is for our youth. Maybe they don't know what it's like to be a peer facilitator. Maybe they don't know what their expectations are. So you can go ahead and give a facilitation video. It's less than 10 minutes long. It's about 6 minutes long, but it is right here and you can click and play it so you can actually help them understand what it is to be a peer facilitator. I'm not going to go into that because we do have a lot of curriculum to cover. So that's the really unique thing about the Catch My Breath curriculum is our peer-to-peer facilitation within each of our model lessons. And then we also have all of our lessons are listed over here in grades 5, 6, 7th, 8th, and then 9 through 12. I know Tonya had mentioned that some of that key component is not really meant to be in 5th grade, but could be used. We've actually had some of our teachers implement the 5th grade curriculum into 4th grade. So I would just say that you take a look at the curriculum. It's free to open it up and look into it and see if it's something that would work with your students. Once you click on, I'm going to go into the 7th and 8th grade core curriculum, go stand firm on my choices and click into that button. Every single one of our lessons looks exactly the same. It's going to talk about the overview. What are we going to learn in this lesson? What are those key objectives that my students are going to learn? Well, here's anything, again, remember that it's in green is highlightable and downloadable. So you got your educator guide, which I'm going to show you what that looks like. All of your activities are downloadable. The neat thing that we've done with our activities as well is not only are they downloadable and you can print them, maybe if you're serving in some of those socioeconomic areas that they don't have, everyone doesn't have a Chromebook like my son. So you can actually download and print it. Or if they are using their Chromebooks or whatever device that they're given, the teacher can actually assign it out and they're fillable right online so that they can go ahead and then turn it back into the teacher and they can fill it out right within their own electronic platform. And then we also give optional other activities as well. So everything the teacher has to do for the materials and prep is listed right here. What key terms do they need to know? We also always give an extension activity, which I want to go into in just a little bit. We usually incorporate our PE guide. I know we had talked, I believe heard Tonya mention about our PE curriculum and physical activity. We have had teachers that go ahead and implement Catch My Breath, not only in the health class, but then also followed up with PE curriculum. So they're learning about doing calisthenics, relay races, all while learning about, the dangers of using e-cigarettes. And then of course, those health standards. And then we follow up with our presentation deck, which can be used either as a Google Slides. We do that so we can do those easily updates that I had told you that we do at minimum of twice a year, or you can download it as a PowerPoint. I do want to, one of the things that our teachers like, which is this spot right here, where our agenda, we break out the teacher planning. Yes, the teacher still reviews it and does all of that, but basically they're given a guideline as to how much time each section should take. And then if you can click on it and you can see the different, what activities that they need to do. And we have that right incorporated. So here's one of them where they have to interview an adult. It could be a trusted adult, maybe a parent or a teacher about e-cigarettes. And then of course, I remember you guys talking earlier about not only do they need the knowledge, but they need to know what to do if they're offered an e-cigarette. So not just telling them how bad it is. Okay, if it's so bad, what do I do if that happens? Well, we teach them those avoid, refuse, and exit strategies. Avoid, are you kidding me? I would never vape. So really taking about looking at Liz's story and talking about those pressures for myself, the media, and other people, and engaging students in different ways to be able to say no. So how do they avoid it? How do they refuse it? And then how can they actually exit the situation? In a way to engage students so that they have this criteria for success to where they can actually feel successful if they're in an in a position to where they have to say no to e-cigarettes. So what they first is that they go ahead and they do an activity within each other, right? So they're just looking at, here are some situations that are on paper. It's a practice skill. So here are some situations on paper, write it out. What would you say? What would your refusal be? And then they have this discussion amongst their peers. And then we really want that criteria for success. So we have them practice. So they stand up and they face the partner, and one's trying to offer them an e-cigarette, one's really practicing that refusal skill. And then they can show it off to the class if they want to. And then of course, as we mentioned, the media, right? It's so important that we talk about the media portion in all of our lessons. We also talk about the health effects, the social consequences of using e-cigarettes. We talk about where to go to and where can you go if you or your friend needs help with e-cigarettes. Who is a trusted adult and who can I go to for help? Our high school curriculum looks a little different. It's very similar in regards to the presentation deck, and the educator guide is all the same. But our high school program was designed and developed by high school students. And one of the things that they wanted is a student workbook. So the kids could actually have something they can take home and at the end of the lessons, and they have this information that they can refer back to. They know where they can go to get help. And it's something that they actually have their hands on, because they may not be willing to open up within their classmates, but maybe there is something that they want to go ahead and look back at. We talked a lot about, especially in our high school, they're talking about those social emotional learning skills. What can I do if I'm feeling stressed instead of using e-cigarettes? How do I identify who a trusted adult is? And this was all designed and developed by our high school students with our Catch My Breath Youth Advisory Board. I want to share with you a couple other things that we do have. So we do have under core curriculum supplements. This is where I just want to show you a couple things that we have. We have STEM, we have humanities, we have self-paced lessons. We have virtual field trips, which are very popular for people to use. We do have cannabis lessons just on using e-cigarettes. So just vaping, cannabis. It's a one lesson for middle school and a one lesson for high school. It's set up exactly the same way as our Catch My Breath core curriculum is. One of the things that I did want to note is when you go into the lessons, there is also speaker notes. So you can either print out the educator guide speaker notes right there, or the speaker notes are within this section here in the presentation deck itself. So we do have cannabis lessons for just vaping cannabis for middle and high school students. And then the other supplemental lesson that I wanted to show you is the PE guide. So we understand that some of our health teachers are also PE teachers. So we connected Catch My Breath lessons for the classroom with doing calisthenics, relay races, and all the fun stuff in a physical activity environment. Some of these activities can actually be done in the classroom, or they could actually be done outside or in the gymnasium. And this is free and downloadable for you to use as well. Another component that I want to share with you, and it was mentioned today earlier on the call as well, and this great webinar giving you so many different resources for you all to have, is our parent and caregiver resources. We talked earlier today in showing the data that, high school use is going down, middle school use is going up. We need to start earlier with this education. What we did for that is we created a K-4 parent and caregiver materials, understanding that students need to, or parents, especially the younger parents, really need to understand the dangers of, especially if they're using e-cigarettes, what do they need to do? Keep it out of the reach and hands of the child so that they can't have access to it. How do they have a conversation with their child? So we give them a video, because we know not all parents are actually going to read a one-page document. So we have a video, we have a fact sheet, and then we have a parent activity. The parent and child activity, we wanted something more than just a coloring sheet. So we did a parent activity time together for their parent or caregiver and the child to look at together. And this is for them to really talk about those avoid, refuse, and exit strategies. So but practicing at this early age, even as young as kindergarten, skills and what would you do? We have that for high school as well. It looks a little different for high school. Obviously for 5 through 12 for middle and high school. The parent toolkit is actually a 12-page document, but we know that not all parents are going to go through a 12-page document. So we also created short video lessons to go with this handout as well. They are also available in English and Spanish. You are free to make a QR code so that if you're doing a presentation, you can do a QR code for parents that they can just click right onto it, so that prevents you from having to print anything out. That is the crust of our curriculum. There's a lot more details into that, but I think I'm coming up on my time. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I just want to go back to just a couple things in the presentation deck, and then I will be all wrapped up. And I'll be going into one of the breakout rooms too if you have any questions. So we already did this slide, and it doesn't want to work. So here are some just different professional training opportunities. There have been some opportunities through California TUPE that are already paid as well. But if you haven't taken one of those yet, we do have our self-paced recorded free training that you can go ahead and just, if you want a little bit more information about the curriculum, you can go ahead and just take that self-paced recorded. We do, if you want a little bit more, we do have implementation training that is live and virtual. Or train the trainer, which is actually live and virtual as well. We can do those at private seats or individual seats, so where you attend an open session, or you can do a private session if you wanted your whole school trained up to 15 people. We are a small nonprofit, so we do give tailored implementation plans, really a lot of technical support for our curriculum. We don't have a 1-800 number that goes to somebody that sits behind a call desk. It is us. So we are here to help you. Feel free to click on the QR code at your desk now, and you'll have right access to the program. If you want to question or ask us anything, I will be here for that Q&A session and the breakout groups in a little bit. So yeah, that's us.
Okay, so that was Catch My Breath. Just a little disclosure. This was pre-recorded where we did have breakout rooms where there could be a Q&A, but unfortunately we won't be having that today. So I know that Marcella mentioned a couple of times if you had questions to go into the breakout room, and that has not been built into our training today. We did that at a previous one. So just to give you a little disclaimer there. But as Marcella was talking about, a lot of the curriculum span between like 4th and 5th grade to 12th grade. One thing I really like about Catch My Breath is all the different activities and assignments and homeworks. Their workbook is really great. It actually gives the students something tangible to work on and kind of associated with the lessons that the facilitator or the educator does. And so I really like that piece. Next, we're going to look at Stanford's Reach Labs curriculum. There's 2 different curriculums here. This is the You and Me Together Vape Free curriculum, as well as the Smart Talk Cannabis Prevention curriculum. We'll also hear from Stanford's Reach Lab, Scott Gerber, who is going to talk a little bit about the data dashboard, where educators and schools can collect data on students pre and post the curriculum and lessons, and use that within their structures, MTSS, or possibly even if schools are trying to get funding, TUPE funding, the data can show how effective these curriculums are. So first we'll hear from Carly. She's the education coordinator for Stanford. She's going to talk about the curriculums, which once again, these lessons include elementary, middle, and high school lessons. They too are also connected to the state standards. They have learning objectives, And they have crash course for instructors. So for instance, I used to teach history and social sciences, which also included civics and government and economics. And sometimes, you know, you're not an expert on every single little thing. And so if you are tasked of being the educator to present these lessons, you kind of want some background information for your own understanding. So I really like the crash course part for these curriculums because it informs the educator or the teacher prior to the lessons. These two also come in two different formats. They come in as PowerPoints and as Canva, and they have discussion guides and Kahoot activities for the students. So first, we're going to hear from Carly about the curriculum.
Well, thank you so much for being here. We are the Stanford Reach Lab, and then today we'll be going over our You and Me Together Vape Free curriculum, as well as our Smart Talk curriculum. I've just been here we go. Linnell already introduced us, so I'll skip over this a little bit, but this is Scott, who's also here today, and I'm Carly. We'll share our emails again at the end of the presentation as well. So yes, we are the REACH Lab, and REACH stands for Research and Education to Empower Adolescents and Young Adults to Choose Health. And basically what we do is we do research on adolescent risk-taking and adolescent development, and then we translate that research into effective policy or programs, curriculum, and then we also inform policy. So if you are interested in seeing a little bit more about what we do have our website here. We have some great stuff about our research, preventions and interventions, advocacy in the news, some YAB, which is our youth action board that is with our lab, as well as Parent Corner and other resources. So hopefully, if we have time, I'll take you through our website. And then here is just a brief overview of all of the resources that we offer. All of our resources and trainings are completely free and they're accessible online. We have multiple different levels. So we have the prevention, education, and awareness curriculums, which is what we'll be focusing on today, the tobacco prevention toolkit and the cannabis awareness prevention toolkit, and then the two curriculums that fall under that. And then we also have our harm reduction curriculum, safety first, and our intervention curriculum, Healthy Futures. So I'll just touch on those briefly. So at the first level is our prevention, education, and awareness. The tobacco prevention toolkit, cannabis awareness and prevention toolkit. We have multiple lessons in the Smart Talk cannabis one. There are 5 lessons, and then in You and Me Together Vape Free, the tobacco or nicotine one, there are 6 lessons. The lessons are on brain development and addiction, other health effects, so how nicotine affects the rest of the body, or cannabis as well, environmental and community effects. We have a lesson on marketing, social media, and media in general. And then we also have a lesson on stress and coping. With the tobacco prevention toolkit, we do have elementary, middle, and high school. As I mentioned, middle and high school are 6 lessons, but elementary is 2 lessons, since we thought 6 was a little bit long for elementary school. We also have a Hawaii specific version available for Pacific Islander students or Native Hawaiian students. We have a Spanish version available and a LGBTQ plus specific version coming soon. And then for the Smart Talk and Cannabis Awareness and Prevention Toolkit, kind of same thing, 2 lessons for elementary, middle and high school are those 5 lessons, and we also have Spanish available as well. So now a little bit about the development and evidence of our curriculum. So all of our curriculum are rooted in scientific theory and supported by research. And we also really value our community partnerships. So we do have our Youth Action Board, or our YAB. They're an amazing group of high school to early college age students. And they really just let us know what's going on in their communities. We have YAB members from across the nation. They let us know about what latest products are out there, as well as if the curriculum are actually speaking to students the way that we hope they are. They also do some great content for us, like videos. They help us create infographics, and they help us do translations as well. And we have about, I believe, 40 or so, or 35 to 40 YAB members currently. And we also do community-based participatory research. We are evidence-based, particularly the You and Me Together Vape-Free curriculum. We do have some studies on that right now, and then we are becoming evidence-based on the Smart Talk curriculum. We do have a study on that as well, though they really are very, very similar, and they kind of inform each other. We are recognized and endorsed by AHA, the CDC, and SAMHSA. And one thing that I think makes our curriculum stand out is our ability to revise or update it quickly. All of our slides are on Canva and available online, and we try to make updates periodically. And all the updates that we do will be live immediately. So if you have downloaded an earlier version of our curriculum, we do recommend checking in every few months or maybe at the beginning of every semester just to see if there are any changes made to the curriculum. We try to keep as updated as possible with, products, trends, the latest research. So if you do see anything that could be updated, or if you're noticing anything in your community that you think we can include in our curriculum, please do let us know. We really rely on that type of community feedback. Now, the goals of both of our curriculum that we're going over today, but specifically for You and Me Together Vape Free, are to increase students' knowledge about e-cigarettes and the harms they can cause, and this goes for cannabis as well. We hope that students gain awareness of strategies that manufacturers and sellers of e-cigarettes really use to entice students to start and continue using. So they use things like deceptive and creative marketing strategies. And we have a whole lesson dedicated to this. That's lesson 4 in both You and Me Together Vape Free and Smart Talk on marketing strategies, media, portrayal in media, social media, and other techniques. We also hope students gain skills to refuse the experimentation and use of e-cigarettes and cannabis products. And ultimately, the big goal is to reduce and prevent e-cigarette use or cannabis use of any type, including nicotine, cannabis, THC, e-cigarette use, non-nicotine products, and ingested products for cannabis as well. Okay, great. So if you click on the link that I just dropped to the chat, or if you just Google Halpern-Felser Reach Lab or Stanford Reach Lab, this should be the first web page that pops up. I highly recommend bookmarking it. I go back to it often. But this is kind of your one-stop shop for everything in our lab. If you want to use any of our resources at all, we do have a tab here on the left. Hopefully you can see my cursor about our team, research. So if you do want to see some of our publications out about the efficacy of our curriculum, you can check out that page. We have our YAB corner, parent corner, resources, and infographics. I'll just click on that really quickly. We do have some great infographics about, like the numbers of cigs in the e-cig or the amount of nicotine in each e-cig. We have non-nicotine e-cigarette products, oral nicotine products, and then we have some other infographics from Safety First, opioids and fentanyl, and then other miscellaneous resources. So that's all on our website. All right, scrolling back up here, we do also have quitting tips for both nicotine and cannabis here under resources and infographics. So if you click on that, it's just kind of a Canvas slide for quitting nicotine. So we go over, having a quitting date, ways to quit, withdrawal, and what that may feel like to a student. We have that, and then we also have cost calculators, which are really fun and interesting, I believe, for students. So if you click on vaping cost calculator here, it just shows students, how much do you pay for an e-cigarette or vape? I'll just put in $20. Of course, that may differ depending on where they're getting it from, like we talked about earlier. How many e-cigarettes or vapes do you use in a week? I'll just say 2 for this example. And then it calculates it for you. So, the cost of e-cigarettes per month that theoretically this student would be spending is $160 and just under $2,000 a year. So that's a lot for a student. And when you really put that into perspective, what else can you buy with $2,000 a year? It really kind of sticks with the student. So I always love showing the cost calculator. Going back to this page here, if you want our curriculum, you will click on Preventions and Interventions here on the left. And then this is where you can access all of our curriculum: Tobacco Prevention Toolkit, Cannabis Awareness and Prevention Toolkit, Healthy Features, Safety First. But just for this example, and I know I'm going a little fast, I want to be mindful of time, but if you want the tobacco prevention toolkit and the slides, you'll click on tobacco prevention toolkit here, and you can see our curriculum within the tobacco toolkit. But today we'll focus on Uni Together Vape Free. So click on that there. And now you're on the curriculum page. And from here, you can access everything, including the data dashboard, which Scott will be going over in just a few minutes. We have our elementary slides here. And if you want the slides, you can click on the tiles here and they'll take you to the lesson page. Middle school, so 1 through 6, and then high school 1 through 6 as well. And then we also have some informational tabs here on our website.
All right, so just to give you a little bit of insight of some of the lessons offered by Stanford's Reach Lab, the You and Me Together Vape Free does have the elementary level. The level is, I think, targeted to like 4th and 5th grade. However, Stanford has said that they have worked with schools who have used them in 6th grade, used them in 3rd grade. But once again, just like Catch My Breath, Stanford's curriculums are available on PowerPoint and Canva and can be fully editable. So if there is something in either of those lessons that you feel is not appropriate for the grade level that you're teaching in elementary, or maybe you want to add stuff, maybe it's a little too like young for the class that you're teaching, it is fully editable. You can take out, add, adjust as needed. Then you have your middle school, which includes, again, 6 different lessons. And then you have high school. Middle and high school will be titled the same thing. They will cover the same topics. However, they are created for those age groups. So middle schools might look a little different and the information might be a little bit more digestible. Whereas the high school, it will, again, look different and have a little bit more higher level information and content. But once again, each lesson will cover the same topic. It is also available in Spanish. All different grade levels, both elementary, middle school, and high school, have all been done in Spanish. So the slides are in Spanish, the engagement pieces will be in Spanish. So that's a really, really great option. All of the lessons will come with objectives as well as what the students will learn. And then key takeaways. So the elementary school level, the 2 lessons, the first one will deal with a general overview of e-cigarettes. What is nicotine? What is addiction? How it affects the body. The second lesson will cover marketing tricks. So the negative effects of marketing on youth, some of the negative effects of vaping on its environment, and then healthy coping skills. When it comes to the middle and high school levels, it's a little bit more in depth. The first lesson will cover the adolescent brain, how the brain grows, how it responds to nicotine in the ages where the brain is growing, and it'll talk about addiction, tolerance, and withdrawal. In the second lesson, it'll talk about the effects on the body. So how nicotine affects the heart, the lungs, and other health risks that are associated with vaping, and second and third hand smoke. The third lesson will cover how e-cigarettes and disposables hurt the environment, how they are usually disposed, how to safely dispose of them, and what you can do as a student to make sure that the environment is free of disposable vapes. The fourth lesson talks about the history of marketing and how marketing strategies and tactics actually target youth and lure youth into using these products. And it will also teach them the importance of refusal skills. Number 5, we'll talk about mental health and stress and how stress affects the body. And it will go over healthy ways to deal with stress that do not include vaping. Finally, lesson 6 is about cannabis use and the effects. It is a general overview of cannabis use and the effects on the brain and the body, and marketing skills, because that will lead into the next curriculum, which is Smart Talk. Smart Talk also goes over 2 lessons in elementary level. And once again, these are targeted towards the 4th and 5th grade, but once again, Stanford has seen schools use them in other grade levels as well. And just like the high school levels, you will see that the 5 lessons for middle and high school are the same exact lesson with the same exact topic, except it is presented in a different way that is more age appropriate for middle school students and high school. Once again, these lessons come with learning objectives. They come with I can or I will learn. And at the end, it will always cover a key takeaway. For elementary, the first lesson is a general overview about cannabis. What is it and how it affects the body and the people around you? In the second lesson, it'll talk about marketing tricks, the negative effects on the environment, community, and how to adopt healthy coping skills. In the middle and high school lessons, the first one is about, once again, the brain. However, it is very specific to cannabis and THC and how those elements affect the brain when it comes to addiction, tolerance, and withdrawals. It talks about problems with adolescent's brain and how to reduce harm or reduce usage. In the second lesson, cannabis, it talks specifically about cannabis's negative effects on the body, both in the ways of inhalation and ingestion. So there's 3 different types of ways for cannabis to be used. It could be inhaled, it could be ingested, and it could be like oil, I don't even know the word. It also talks about the second and third hand effects and refusal skills. In the third lesson, it talks about a healthy community. So what a healthy community looks like, both mentally and physically, how to promote a healthy lifestyle, and how to use your voice to address those concerns. In the fourth lesson, it talks about how the media portrays cannabis and how those strategies and tactics are meant to target youth users and how to avoid those marketing influences. And finally, in the fifth lesson, it talks about stress, how it affects the body, and healthy ways to deal with it that does not include using cannabis. Stanford's curriculum also comes with things to support the schools and the educators. They give a example of a parent letter that can be used as is and just add the school or the school district's information. Or it can be edited. So it could be just a jumping off point. The curriculum also comes with talking points. So this is basically if a school or an educator wants to use the lessons as is, it comes with almost literally a script that an educator can follow when delivering these lessons. And it also comes with directions for some of the engagement pieces. It comes with discussion guides. Every lesson comes with a discussion guide, which is meant to help lead students to have these discussions with a safe adult, whether that be their parents or maybe a coach or teacher. Each lesson also comes with its own Kahoot activity, which again, I've been out of the classroom for maybe about 2 or 3 years, but kids love Kahoot. So every lesson ends with a Kahoot assessment. These lessons come in the formats of PowerPoint and Canva. They also come with some activities that can be done as a warm-up prior to the lessons. And once again, it comes with a crash course for educators to look at and learn about and gain some content knowledge before actually delivering the lessons. One of the newest and kind of interesting features that I really like is the data dashboard. So I'm going to let Stanford's Scott Gerber talk about the data dashboard and how educators can use it in their classrooms.
Thank you so much for sharing the screen and the slides. And I love being part of this conversation because as a elementary and alternative school teacher, a school district student services coordinator for 21 years. And then I had kind of Mark's role with the Alameda County Office of Education for 7 years before joining Stanford's Reach Lab. So I love being able to talk and work with this type of a group. I will share that one of the things that was always a challenge for me as a teacher and as an administrator was data collection. Our student information systems were not great at being able to gather information about what prevention and intervention resources we offered. We tried, but Infinite Campus, SASE, all the other information systems we had just didn't gather the data effectively for us to inform instruction and really attitudes, beliefs, behavior. So embedded within all of the curriculum, the prevention and intervention resources are anonymous pre and post surveys. So what the screen we're looking at right now just kind of shows that, like on slide 2 of every lesson, at the beginning and end of You and Me Together Vape Free or Smart Talk, or any of the other curriculum or interventions, there's a pre-survey. And then the second to last slide is always a post survey. And so there's a QR code as well as a unique URL for those pre and post surveys. So if you move on to the next slide, Carly, when folks register for the dashboard, I'm going to give you, before you register, I'm going to move to the next slide and give you a couple of tips pre-registration, because those are important. So if you move to that next slide, Carly, 2 things that are important, because some of you might have someone at a district office that's pushing in, that's providing support. Some of you may be working with a support provider, public health or behavioral health, or a local nonprofit that's providing some during school, after school, before school, or summer prevention and intervention work. So the teacher button over on the left, teacher does not necessarily mean certificated classroom teacher. It could be whoever is teaching or assigning the prevention or intervention. So if you have an outside provider who's coming in to provide support, they could sign up as a teacher. So sometimes people get stuck on the word teacher and they don't want to click on it. They don't know how to register because they're not a certificated teacher. So teacher on the left, and that person could be assigned or can sign up to work with one school site, or they could sign up if you have a health teacher or someone who's working at 3 different school sites doing, a 0.2 or a 0.4 at multiple different sites of their full-time FTE, they could sign up and show that they are at 2, 3, 4 different school sites. The second one that I'm going to point out is that admin button. That could be a counselor. It could be a school site administrator. It could be a district administrator. And the one button that people frequently overlook is that if you are someone who's going to be assigning, for example, the My Healthy Futures intervention, you're going to be assigning the course or potentially teaching the course, you're going to want to click on that I am also a teacher button. And when you do that, that actually gives you a teacher code that you can then use when you assign the courses or course to students. So I point those out now because sometimes I have people and they start to register during a training and then they email me and say, I clicked on the admin button and I'm set up, but I don't have a code. So, or I didn't know what to sign up for because I'm not a certificated teacher. So if you go to the next slide, Carly, once you register, what you'll see is you'll see your unique teacher code. So if you have 3 health teachers or PE teachers or science teachers, whoever's going to be implementing the prevention curriculum in your schools, they would register. They get a code that's unique to them that ties them to your school site, your district, and your county. The students never see that information. All they see is this teacher gives them this code when they go to take the pre and post surveys. And then the image that's down towards the bottom, when the students click on that pre or post survey, they enter the teacher code. And then what they then see after they click on go to form is over on the right, it says you've now joined Scott's classroom or Linnell's classroom or Carly's classroom. So whichever teacher they're with, they're going to see that they're assigned to that teacher. And then they select their if you work at multiple schools, they select which of the schools you've selected for the drop down, what grade they're in, and then it pre-populates the form type, whether it's the You and Me Together Vape Free pre-survey, it automatically fills that in at the bottom, and then it takes them to the anonymous pre and post surveys. As Carly mentioned, the only time that we collect student names, which is not tied to any of their data, so none of the data or reports that they submit on the pre and post survey, the only time we collect student data or student name is once they hit submit on the post survey of the intervention Healthy Futures, they hit submit, that data goes into the data dashboard, and then they're prompted to enter their first and last name to get their certificate of completion. So that is not tied to any of their data. It doesn't link back to any of it, but then their name shows up on their certificate of completion, and you or whoever assigned them the course and gave them the teacher ID, that student's name then shows up on your data dashboard as having completed the course. So that's one way. Again, when I talk about different student information systems, it was always hard for me. When I was at the county office working in 18 school districts, and there were 12 different student information systems being used. And I'd say, can you let me know what interventions were used with students? They were like, it's in the notes. It's really hard for us to query that. So they couldn't figure out how many students had started an intervention and who had actually completed it. And so through the data dashboard, that makes it a little bit easier to be able to see which of your students have started the intervention and which have completed the intervention. So if you want to move to the next slide, Carly. So in some of the basics on why using the data dashboard, one, it really helps the teacher to be able to see kind of the pre and post, which we do with most of our content areas. So to be able to see kind of where students started before you started the prevention course and where they ended as far as their beliefs and attitudes and skills they've developed around refusal skills and other skills, kind of again, tied back to those state and national health standards. It's really nice to be able to gauge that level of change. And it looks both locally, but then also for us to be able to look at it nationally and for the county to be able to see that type of data. Evaluating the effectiveness of the curriculum, we are always looking to keep our content up to date, accurate, and engaging. And then the other piece is just to simplify that reporting. I know that for TUPE funded folks to be able to report out to the California Department of Education how many students engaged in You and Me Together Vape Free, Smart Talk, or any of our intervention, it's much easier to be able to report out. We had 527 students at Granada High School that completed the pre and post surveys for You and Me Together Vape Free. So that data reporting will hopefully be much easier.
Yes, thank you, Scott. So if you are interested in connecting with us or just keeping up with our latest research or updates, please do follow us on social media. We're on X, or what was formerly Twitter, I guess, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn as well. All of our ads are at Stanford Reach Lab, and then our YAB, the Youth Action Board, also does have a Instagram. So please give us a follow. And then we do want to say thank you so much for being here today, for your participation and for listening. If you do have any questions at all or just want to connect with us, we have our general Reach Lab email here, Scott's email, and my email there at the bottom, or you can scan that QR code for our contact form.
Great. So all of that information brings us to our closing, and I want to make sure that I honor everybody's time because we're getting close to the end. So here at the TUPE unit at LACOE, we do offer training on these curriculums. They are free of cost. We schedule them at the beginning of the school year and then have them throughout the year. So this is probably my favorite part of all of our presentations, is all the resources that I get to share with you. So went too far. So what we do here at TUPE is trainings like this. We also offer educational materials to schools that you can order for your next parent presentation or your next back to school night. But like I was saying before, we also offer trainings both on your school campuses if you're looking to train your staff, or trainings like the one today where we schedule them and you register and anybody and everybody can attend. And in order to see some of our trainings coming up, we have our training catalog where you can see up-to-date trainings that will be coming in the future. As I mentioned, we have a training on intervention program. So that second tier of addressing vaping on campus, which will be in December, where we will explore 3 different intervention programs that are available to school districts, whether that means training staff to meet with students who have been caught vaping, or referrals like why vape. We also have another training coming up on the Stanford curriculum that will be an all-day in-person training. Once again, that is a free training. So if you're looking to use You and Me Vape Free in your schools, please consider coming to that training. We also have other trainings like Beyond Red Ribbon Week and other trainings that are going to be available in the near future. So please feel free to check out our catalog, maybe bookmark it as we add more trainings once we start scheduling more in the spring and in the summer. I want to thank everybody for being here today and sticking with me for 2 hours. Please feel free to reach out to me or just our general TUPE web email if you want any assistance.